Hi, I'm Professor Higgins, and I'd like to welcome you to Lecture 1 of Business Organizations and the Law of Agency. I almost forgot what I was doing here tonight. There's some thunder and rain outside. You may hear it. I hope it's not distracting to you. But I love rain, so it's just creating a really cozy atmosphere and ambiance for me for our lecture tonight. But anyway, I want to talk to you. Tonight's lecture is going to focus on the different types of entities that we have here in the state of Florida. When you're deciding, or when you have a client that is deciding to start a business, there's going to be several factors that they will want to take into consideration. And based on those factors, they will make a more educated decision. You need to explain what the pros of the different entities are and what some of the cons or some of the pitfalls of the entities are. The first one that we're going to cover is a sole proprietorship. A sole proprietorship is when you have one individual, just one individual, who runs the whole business, makes all of the decisions, owns all the assets, and is personally liable for any debts or lawsuits or anything that comes up in business. So this is a type of business that if you don't have a lot of money to get started to run a business and set up anything extravagant, then a sole proprietorship is a great way to go. Now, once you start a business, it can always morph into something else if it starts growing. But most businesses begin as a sole proprietorship here in the state of Florida. And to that end, about, I believe it's 70%. Yeah, I researched 70% of all businesses in the United States currently are sole proprietorships. So being a sole proprietor is very common, and it's a very easy way to just jump in and get started. The second business entity that we're gonna look at this semester is a general partnership. And the general partnership is what we usually think of when we talk about a partnership. It's almost identical to a sole proprietorship, except instead of one, you have two or more. You have 2 or 3 partners who own all the assets. They make all the decisions together and have all the control, and they too are personally liable for any debts that the business incurs or any lawsuits that might be filed against the business or the partnership. Now, when I say personal liability, I mean that if there's a lawsuit or a debt and the business doesn't have the assets or the money or the wherewithal to be able to pay the debt, then those plaintiffs can come after whether it's a sole proprietor or it's a partner. Those, whoever is suing, they can go after those folks, the liability, they go after them personally. First they have to go through all the business, and then they take all of that, and if the business still owes money, then the plaintiff can go after each of the partners and take their personal property. So the personal property, nobody wants personal liability, or most people don't want personal liability. And there are things that you can put into place, which we will get into later, such as insurance, that will protect you from personal liability, or you can just choose to have a different type of business entity from the get-go. So we will move on here. And I want to tell you about a third type of business entity. It's known as a limited partnership. The limited partnership is a special type of partnership where 2 or more persons co-own all of the business assets. Some of them share in the decision making, while some of them have unlimited personal liability, while others do not. So When you think about the general partnership where everybody owns it, everybody controls it, and everybody has personal liability, in a limited partnership, the partners, there are limited partners who have limited liability, and there are other partners, general partners in the limited partnership, that have unlimited liability. So when we get into that entity in our discussions, it will be very interesting for you to find out what makes it where someone can decide that they're going to limit their liability while their partner, who's the general partner, who is generally making the decisions, will have unlimited liability exposure. All right. Then the fourth little entity that we're going to be talking about is an entity where, again, there are two or more persons who co-own all the business assets. They share in the decision making, but they do not have unlimited personal liability for the wrongful acts or omissions, which is what a lawsuit would bring about, of his or her partners to the partnership. This is kind of ideal for a law firm or an accounting firm or medical practices. So it's similar to the limited partnership, except that, actually, I don't want to say it's similar to the limited partnership. It's more like a general partnership, because each limited liability partner, they still have exposure, they still have unlimited personal liability, but only for the stuff that they do. They don't have that same exposure for anything that their partners are doing. This may be a little confusing now, but don't worry, we will get it all cleared up. Tonight, I just want you to know that we're going to be looking at three major partnerships. After we talk about the sole proprietorship, we're talking about a general partnership, a limited partnership, and a limited liability partnership. Okay, the fifth entity that we're going to discuss is called a limited liability company. This is my favorite. It's my personal favorite business entity here in the state of Florida, and it's fairly new. This is where it's kind of like if a partnership and a corporation got together and they had a baby. The baby would be a limited liability company. A business where the owners, and it can be as few as one, you could even have one owner that is the owner of a limited liability company. But the owners own all of the assets, the members share in the decision making, and there is limited liability for the members, very much like shareholders in a corporation. And you might have picked up on this, the owner or owners of a limited liability company are known as members. They are owners, but they are members of the limited liability company. They're not partners. So they have, I think, the best of all worlds, and this is a great little entity. And when you are recommending to clients, you always want to make sure that you tell them about this type of entity if they don't want a corporation or something kind of large and unwieldy. I just love the LLC. Okay. And I have a note here I wanted to tell you. In Florida, there are more LLCs being formed each year than corporations. So a lot of folks are getting in on the LLC bandwagon, and I think it's a great way to go. All right. The last one that we're going to look at is the corporation. Now, first, we will cover all of the sole proprietors, all the partnerships, and the LLC. Then we will have a midterm exam. After the midterm exam, we will just have one single business entity that we will look at, and that's corporations. Corporations is an entity created by statute, and owned by shareholders. Okay, this last business entity, corporations, is a business entity which is owned by shareholders. Now, all of those shareholders are part owners of the corporation, and you can have many, many owners of a corporation, and usually do. Those folks are all known as shareholders. The corporation is not run by the owners. The shareholders do not run the corporation. The corporation is managed by officers. These officers are elected by directors who are elected by the shareholders. So the owners, the shareholders, do have some control in that they are the ones that elect the directors. The shareholders, the owners, enjoy limited liability. Now, there are a bunch of different kinds of corporations that we will study, and corporations do produce the most receipts in the United States this year. What I find interesting is that over 90% of the corporations in the United States employ under 100 workers, and we're going to find out why this semester. But I know when you think of a corporation, you just think of thousands and thousands of employees, but 90% of them in our country have under 100 employees. All right, so when you're going to talk to your client, how do people who want to start a business decide which entity to form? Well, there's several things, and we look at each of these aspects of a business and the pros and cons of each aspect, and then the client decides. One of the factors is the ease of formation. Okay, if you just want to get out there, you have a great idea, you don't have a lot of money, and you just want to get everything started up, you're going to jump right into a sole proprietorship. It's so easy to form. It's the easiest business to form. The second aspect or factor that you want to consider is management. Do you want to control everything? Do you want to be responsible for everything? Does your client, are they kind of a control freak and they want to be in charge of everything? Or do they not care so much about control? Do they want to find some good people to run their business and then let those folks take off and be creative and make a lot of money for them? Liability and financial risk are the third factors, okay, the third and fourth factor, which are really kind of the same thing, because liability, how much liability your business entity is going to be exposed to, is dictated by your risk, how much financial risk you're comfortable with. So if you're comfortable with a lot of risk, you're going to not mind kind of flirting with disaster, as they say. People like you and me here in the law, generally, we are very risk averse. When we see something happen, we're wondering, isn't there a law against that? Or I wonder what the law is on that. Are they allowed to do that? If you find yourself asking these kinds of questions, then you are wanting to know what the law has to say about these different entities. So the different practices, there are some that have high risk. Some of these entities have higher risk of when you're sued, and some of them have none. So that will be something that you'll want to determine for your client. Transferability. If you are wanting to have a business and you want to, okay. My dog is scared of the thunder and she's coming in. So now you might hear some thunder and you might hear some whining. All right, where was I? Transferability. So if you want to maybe leave this to a son or a daughter, if you have started a business, you worry about the transferability. If you don't care, maybe you're just you have some great idea to make money while the World Cup is here, or during the Super Bowl. So you don't care about transferability because your business isn't going to be around that long, then you don't care about transferability. Some entities are very easy to transfer. Some you absolutely cannot. So that's something that we look at. Sharing the profits and the losses. How do you like to share profits and losses? And sadly, there's not an entity where I can take all the losses, I can take all the profits, and you can take all the losses. Generally, there are profits and losses. The more profits you take, the more you have to be willing to take the losses in the same situation. So, profits and losses, transferability, liability, financial risk, management, and ease of formation are the major factors that we consider when setting up a business. And then there's one huge one, taxation. Taxes are always very important to whoever is setting up the business. So you always want to look at that. You always want to make sure what the tax implications are. All right, so this has just been a little brief overview of what we're going to be doing this semester, and we will go into much more depth on each of these. Now, I had a couple of notes that I wanted to give you. I want you, before next time, I want you to read the course syllabus very thoroughly, and I want you to take the quiz. There's a quiz on the syllabus because I want to make sure, number one, that you read the syllabus, and number two, the quiz is due the day that my no-show is required. So if I have a student that has not taken the quiz, then I must drop you from the course. So make sure that you go onto Canvas and take the quiz. And then I also want you to read the chapter on the law of agency before our next lecture. I do have a couple other things I would like for you to do. The first one is I want you to go into sunbiz.org, and I want you to kind of noodle around in there, click around, see what it's got. This is the primary platform in Florida for people who want to conduct business in the state of Florida. So there's a ton of forms, there's a lot of good information, and the more familiar you are with it, the better you're going to do in this class. So your assignment tonight is just to get in there and look around. I want you to visit it, wander around, and I specifically want you to go to the overview of divisions and look at the yearly statistics. I also want you to look at, there's a little section called forms and fees, and I want you to get, that's where you're going to be getting some facts from. So let's take a look at that. The other website that I want you to look at, in addition to sunbiz.org, is the Department of Business and Professional Regulation. There should be a link in your study guide. I'll make sure that I included that. We will be using this a lot, so I want you to just, again, hop in there, look around, see what it's all about, so that you'll be able to discuss it in our next lecture or during our talking time. And that is really all I have for this evening. So nothing heavy, just kind of an overview of the businesses that we have here in the state of Florida. And I think you're just going to love it. This is going to be the most exciting class that you've taken all semester. And I want you to really pay attention and the book is fabulous, so read the book. I want to make sure, I don't care which book you get. These are the two books. This book, Fundamentals of Business Organizations for Paralegal. This is the same one. It's a little bit older. So make sure you get one of these books, because this book is wherever you can find it. Find it on Amazon, cheaper than you can find it at the bookstore. Do that. Grab that. Because I really love this book. This book's going to be talking about the whole United States. I'm going to be talking about Florida specifically, but you never know. As a paralegal, you might be practicing in another state, and so it will be important to know all these different business entities generally, and then for those of you who will be practicing here in the state of Florida, very specifically, there are so many jobs, or so many jobs for paralegals in corporations. And once you get good, after you've been out 2 or 3 years and you've been working for a Disney or for a Adventist Health or Advent Health, you become so valuable. So please really focus in on this class, and it is one of our most difficult courses here, I will tell you, at Valencia. But I think if you just get in the mindset to really get in here and dig around, you can learn so much. And if you never practice corporate law, you never work for a corporation, who knows? Maybe your significant other wants to start a business, or your brother, or your uncle. I don't know. And you'll have a lot of really fantastic information, and you'll be able to tell them where to go to find documents for like starting a partnership or a sole proprietorship or even an LLC if they just want to start something small. So I look forward to seeing you next time for lecture 2. It will be, I'll give you a little tease, it's going to be on the law of agency. So make sure you read that chapter in your text before watching the next lecture. All right, you guys stay safe and dry, especially tonight with the rain.